They took away due process rulemaking. They've taken away our right to be free of warrantless searches and seizures for this very intrusive track and trace surveillance, etc. So we are watching something now that I never believed that I would see in my lifetime. And I read in Orwell and Kafka and Aldous Huxley, this dystopian science fiction novels, that one day the United States will be overtaken by fascism. Fascism, incidentally, is defined, Mussolini defined it as a merger of state and corporate power, and orchestrated by Tony Fauci. So, what we're seeing today, is what I call turnkey totalitarianism. They are putting in place all of these technological mechanisms for control we've never seen before. It's been the ambition of every totalitarian kind to control every aspect of behavior, of conduct, of thought, and to obliterate dissent. None of them have been able to do it. They didn't have the technological capacity. Even in Hitler's Germany, you could cross the Alps into Switzerland. You could hide in an attic like Anne Frank did. I visited in 1962 East Germany with my father and met people who had climbed the wall and escaped. So it was possible. Many died trying it, but it was possible. Today, the mechanisms are being put in place that will make it so none of us can run and none of us can hide. Within 5 years, we're going to see 415,000 low-orbit satellites. Bill Gates says his 65,000 satellites alone will be able to look at every square inch of the planet 24 hours a day to harvest our data and control our behavior. Digital currency that will allow them to punish us from a distance and cut off our food supply. Vaccine passports. You have a series of rights, as flawed as our government is. You can still go out and go to a bar. You can go to a sporting event. You can get on a bus or an airplane and you can travel. You have certain freedoms. You can get educated, etc. The minute they hand you that vaccine passport, every right that you have is transformed into a privilege contingent upon your obedience to arbitrary government dictates. It will make you a slave. And what do we do about this? What do? We resist. I'm going to tell you 3 rules you all need to know and memorize. Number 1, every power that government takes from us, it will never relinquish voluntarily. Oh, they tell you we just want you to lock down for 2 weeks. Just to flatten the curve in the hospitals. But then 20 months later, they still have us locked down. And even when they give up, when they close the lockdowns and let us go back to normal, they are not relinquishing the power to do it to you again and again and again. They now have that power, and they will never let it go until we make them let it go. So, every power they take from us, they will ultimately abuse to the maximum extent possible. Number 3, nobody in history of the planet has ever complied their way out of totalitarian control. Every capitulation is a signal to the oppressors to impose new forms of torment or torture or compliance or obedience. Every time you comply, you get weaker. The hill that you're going to die on is the hill that you're on right now.
A few minutes on that, the central issue of COVID-19. You're one of the only leaders out there that gets that it's a political weapon of control and fear and economic shutdowns to consolidate power. Finally, a lot of leaders like Rand Paul and others are talking about the Great Reset. They're talking about Klaus Schwab, that other power group, because we talk about China, we talk about Russia, we talk about the U.S., but then there's that globalist arm that manipulates all the different groups. I know that you are an expert on that. You observed that when you were the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency. Without getting into classified aspects of the different power blocks, can you explain to us in a nutshell what the globalists are up to and how you think we counter them? I think just identifying them and exposing the UN conglomerate is the way to go. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So this idea of the Great Reset is not a conspiracy theory. I mean, Klaus Schwab wrote a book about it. I mean, so let's not kid ourselves anymore. Let's not let the mainstream theorists. This is very real. This whole issue with COVID, so COVID is a real type of disease or whatever you want to call it. But it's treatable, and I don't want to get into the medical or the science part of it, which has really come out in droves. This is all about control, and it's controlled by a group of elitists around the world, and that includes some of these tech titans, some of these corporate titans of that not only in the United States but around the world, and certainly some of these other organizations. So a couple of organizations, and everybody can go look these up: World Trade Organization, the World Bank, the European Union, the World Health Organization, which has come into the news quite a bit because of all this COVID stuff and the responses. But all of these global organizations, the United Nations is another one. All these global organizations, they see themselves as, this is how we can rule the world. This is how we can control societies. This is how we can control humanity. So let's introduce something called COVID, and they did it for a couple of. I mean, there's a lot of things here going on, but yes, these are globalist organizations. These are world organizations, and when you start to look at, who is directing them and who is leading them, there are real people behind that. And I mean, Schwab is one. You got George Soros. You have the Arabella Group. I mean, these are real things. These are led by real people who have placed themselves. Gates is another one, who have placed themselves above some of these world institutions, and they drive them. They really do drive them. I expect something, again, another distraction. I really do. I expect, because of what was staged on January 6th and what was staged up in Michigan to kidnap, the fake kidnapping of the governor up in Michigan, Whitmer. I think we're going to see staged events. I really do. I mean, I really do think that, do not put past this administration, but they're thugs in some cases that they have access to. Do not put it past them to stage something and then declare some type of national emergency in order to further shut down aspects of our freedoms. I really.
Like Mrs. Merkel, even Vladimir Putin, and so on, they all have been young global leaders of the World Economic Forum. Mm-hmm. But what we are very proud of now is the young generation, like Prime Minister Trudeau, President of Argentina, and so on, that we penetrate the cabinets. So yesterday I was at a reception for Prime Minister Trudeau, and I know that half of this cabinet, or even more, half of this cabinet are for our actually young global leaders of the World Economic Forum.
That's true in Argentina as well.
It's true in Argentina, and it's true in France now. I mean, with the president, with a young global leader.
So, yes, the concerns expressed by a few people gathered in Ottawa right now are not new, not surprising, are heard, but are a continuation of what we've unfortunately seen in disinformation and misinformation online, conspiracy theorists about microchips, about God knows what else that go with the tinfoil hats.